commentary video is brought to you by Halloween Part 2, because nothing is better than a good sequel.
I'm so over it.
Really?
I don't even care if
I'm
Moses
not.
breaks up with me over this. Bye.
Why would Moses break up over a podcast?
Because I don't like his family. And I don't like hanging out with you guys. And you guys are awful. And that's it. And yeah, I said it.
But you liked me when we started.
No, I was trying to be nice and fun. But I actually don't really care that much for you.
Really? You never liked me?
Nope.
I
Fake.
can't. Oh.
You're the next to be canceled.
You're really upset.
No, I'm not. I'm fine. So have fun. Good luck on the baby making.
Thank you. I feel that you're really upset now.
Okay.
So, hello, hi, how are you doing? You look great. I finally feel great. My health is getting better because I actually slept for once. Just wanted to say hi and welcome back. Yes, I've been gone for a good couple weeks. I've been working, I've been tired. I have not had time to sit down and really make this video that I've wanted to make for such a long time. And I'm glad I waited because, as you can see, some of this stuff is recent as of last week. And I did want to make multiple videos about this Frenemies thing. I wanted to talk about it once and just get it out the way and just tell my overall thoughts about the whole thing. So you're only getting one video about the Frenemies thing from me. But I think I have said and took notes and have clips. I don't have that many clips, I just have a lot of notes. Don't know where this is gonna go, don't know how long this is gonna be, but happy Halloween to those of you out there. And if you don't celebrate Halloween, happy Thanksgiving. If you don't know, if you don't celebrate Thanksgiving, happy holidays? Let's go with that. Happy holidays. So without further ado, don't know how long this is gonna be, but let's get into the tea. Hey, what is up, everybody? Yes, I returned to your phone, your computer, your TV, your tablet, your laptop. I don't know what you are watching me on or where you are watching me at right now. Welcome back to all you legends. It's me, it's Malcolm, and today, yes, I'm wearing another costume. One, because we are finally talking about this Frenemies thing that I wanted to talk about for such a long time because I have so many thoughts. Also, it's Halloween time, so I wanted to dress up. And my next video should be about Tana Mojo, and I'm looking for a clown outfit. So if you know a good clown outfit, let me know. So I know what you're thinking. Why, oh why did it take you so long, even from like the last bit of information, to make this video? Well, it's very, very quite simple. Trisha Paytas is one of those people that uploads and deletes so many videos at the same time that it's really hard to follow. Also, there are a lot of tweets that get deleted, re-uploaded, deleted again, and there's screenshots that are gone, but here and there, and not there anymore. You see how fast I'm talking? That's how fast Trisha Paytas talks. So it's very hard to keep up with them and just like follow everything that they're trying to say. Finally, now that everything's calmed down, I feel like it's finally time to really look over everything that I can find and really analyze it. Also, I've been really tired, but we're not gonna get into that. And another reason why this video has taken so long is because when it comes to anything Trisha Paytas related, especially the timeline, the tweets, the videos to follow are like damn near impossible, to be honest with you. And no joke, I think, and I probably lost count, I feel like there was probably over 20 videos, 150 tweets, 40 plus TikToks, just from the last bit of whatever Ethan said, and my brain imploded. I'm gonna try my best to keep this timeline intact in one simple line. I may miss some stuff here and there, so I do apologize. Now, there's no way I can even talk about all the details in one video about the history of Keemstar, Ethan Klein, Gila, and her brother Moses, and how Trisha Paytas plays into this whole situation. What I did was to focus on the events from the very last Frenemies episode. Yes, I will be talking about the other Frenemies episode, but my main focus for this video was everything that happened from that last episode of Frenemies and after. Just want to make that clear. Like, there are plenty of videos that go into detail about the first two breakups, but I will be talking about them a little bit. And the reason why I'm not really talking about the first two fights of when Trisha Paytas left the set is because ultimately it does not matter. Because it seems that from those two fights, Trisha Paytas and Ethan Klein have worked their differences out, thus leading to like a 25-week span of really nobody arguing, nobody storming out on set. And then it led to the third and final fight, which was the 39th episode of Frenemies, which was like the last episode of Frenemies that Trisha and Ethan were on together. But I do want to talk about those two first breakups just because it makes sense later in the video. I also want to bring up the fact that I know, like, trust me, I know Ethan Klein also has his own problematic past. But just for this instance, I'm looking at what played out on the podcast and like the things that happened after the podcast. Anything I talk about does not excuse either Trisha Paytas or Ethan Klein from anything of their past that they have not been accountable for. If it sounds like I'm pro one way or pro the other way, I'm not excusing their past. I'm very well aware of each of their past. Just want to put that out there right now before I move on and then somebody comments that like I need to look into people because I'm picking the side of such and such. Just putting out there now, this video, anything I say does not excuse anything or anyone. First part of this timeline. On October 13th, 2020, with the appropriately titled video of Trisha and Ethan have a huge fight and she storms out. Now just remember, Trisha's pronouns are they, them, but just in context, the title says she. So just want to get that out the way right now. I can't show the full clip because it's a long clip, but here's just a little from their argument of that exact podcast to where Trisha Paytas then walks out. You don't see when they walk out, but just know this leads to them then walking out.
I think they didn't want to give up the house more than they didn't care about giving us up.
That explains all this.
Hey, I turned out fine. You know, having 2 Christmases, 2 birthdays ain't a bad thing.
You saying turned out fine. I was like, oh,
Oh my God, look who's talking.
Hey, I would never say I turned out fine.
The most dysfunctional family.
I literally would never say I turned out fine, even though I did. I turned out okay. I'm
no,
functional.
just because you make money doesn't
but
mean
you're
okay.
way crazier than me.
That's so not true.
No, but you're way crazier than me.
That's not true.
Bro, that's objectively true.
You hide it more, just like Mikey, who hides.
Oh, really?
It all gets brought to the surface.
I don't hide
later
anything.
On.
I literally don't. You literally just said how honest I am, and you respect that about me.
But you hide the crazy, is what I'm saying. Yeah, you
I don't
share
hide.
a lot.
I don't hide.
You do hide the crazy.
I'm all out there with
you
no
don't
eyebrows and everything.
You were into pills. You never talk about that you were a pill addict for a minute.
What?
Yeah, you said that. You said you were really into pills, and you don't talk about that.
Why do I need to talk about that?
Because that's being open. That you're judging me for being crazy, taking pills or whatever. Like I take pills or whatever. But you've done it too, and you're just not open about it.
I don't think that is a defining characteristic of who I am.
I think that is a big thing. That makes sense. Why? Because you're on medication now, and there's no shame or judgment in it. But like, hey, if you're going to shame me for being off meds, you should say, hey, I'm on meds.
I'm not shaming you for being off meds.
That's what it sounds like. You just call me crazy,
but here's
which
what you
means
do.
I'm off
You know
medication.
what you just did? You're trying to see. This is why you are such a dangerous person, especially to be close with, because you'll take something that I've told you. You'll take something that somebody told you in confidence, and you'll use it. You'll weaponize it against them.
That's not true.
That's what you just did.
No,
and luckily for you, I don't care, and I'm okay with it. But you go, oh well, I told you an anecdote about how I used to take tramadol back in Israel. When I was like bored in a dead end job, and you literally just weaponized that against me.
You called me crazy, knowing my history.
Bro, we always call you crazy. You're like upfront crazy.
But if you're gonna call me crazy, then I'm gonna say, hey, why don't you own up to what you've done? That
doesn't make me crazy.
No, something Ethan mentioned in this episode that really stuck with me. It was kind of like a prophecy coming true. Ethan says that Trisha weaponizes things said in confidence against someone, and maybe at the time it wasn't true. However, now looking back at the deleted videos, he was kind of right. Trisha was leaking text messages, especially between them and Ethan, and talking about personal stuff, especially about finances. We'll get to that. And just trying to destroy Ethan's character online. That being said, it did turn into a battle of fan bases where one side kept coming for the other and everyone involved, thus leading to probably one of the most toxic environments in terms of YouTube for a couple weeks. This isn't just one side. Both sides have said some nasty and mean things to each other. So it's not just like H3 fans are innocent or like Trisha fans are innocent. They have both done and said some nasty things to each side. However, it does seem like with all fan bases, like the louder people in said fan bases always get the most attention. Like, I'm pretty sure there are calm people on both sides, right? You really don't see it that much back then. You only saw like the people that were just the loudest and like got the most likes and retweets. And then you see people that were just trying to explain their side. It can get frustrating when you see people that represent your kind of fan base like being so nasty and violent. You're like, I'm not with him. Nah, that's not what I'm feeling, but I'm still on this side. So, kind of hard, but it happens. Now on to the second fight. This happened on December 10th, 2020. And this video was titled appropriately yet again, Trisha Paytas quits the podcast and storms out. Again, this fight kind of lasts for a long time. Here's a clip from that podcast where I think the argument starts, where I found it, and then I will be back with more.
You don't want to eat the pizza?
We can finish this episode, but like I'm just telling you.
Are you still excited for the pizza or
Right,
no?
yeah, I can't wait.
That's sarcastic. I'm still excited for the pizza. Can we move past this?
When I have a kid, I'm not going to have nannies. That's for damn sure.
What does that mean? You're not going to have a babysitter when you have a kid? How are you going to do anything? What does that mean? You're trying to attack our parental abilities?
Let's just move on. There's no attack. I just made a comment.
There's something wrong with having a nanny?
In my eyes, yes.
Really?
We just keep doing the
What about daycare?
Daycare's different.
Why?
Nannies are like people who come here and take care of your child all day.
Because we're working. That's how everybody has nanny. They work. People work.
You can take care of kids and work. I never had a nanny. My parents, I never had a nanny.
And so you think we're bad parents? That's what you're insinuating?
I said I would never have a nanny. Did I say you had a parent? You're putting words in my mouth. I literally said I would never have a nanny if I had a kid.
Okay. Well, I think a lot of people have nannies. A lot of our employees have nannies. Because we both work, right? And so we have a nanny that Theodore really likes, and he spends the whole day with her. And then when she's done around 4:30, we take over and spend. Cool. I think that's pretty normal.
Good. Happy for you guys.
Why are you attacking our parental?
I'm not. I said I would not have a nanny if it was me.
But
I'm not attacking your parental choices. You do whatever you want. I'm not attacking.
But why did you make that comment then?
I'm just saying. I heard a nanny upstairs, and I was like, oh, I want to have a nanny.
Why'd you say it?
Because I want to have a nanny. I heard a nanny upstairs, and I was like,
but clearly you're trying to say something about us.
No, I'm not at all. That's you.
Really? You just said it out of nowhere when you're mad at me?
You're projecting that.
No, I'm not. Why would I? How am I projecting?
Because you're like, oh, you're attacking us. I didn't attack you. I just said I wouldn't have a nanny.
Do you think I'm a good dad?
It was a comment. I have no idea. I don't know. You seem fine. You seem good with him. I have no idea if you're a good dad. I can't say either way.
But I have a nanny.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
I don't think it's a problem. I would just, if I was lucky enough to have a kid, I would just spend my time with the kid.
Now, with this argument, I've really started to notice a theme, but I will save it until we see the third and final argument. From this clip, though, you see again how Trisha brings up a personal thing for Ethan and then uses it against him. Trisha tries to play it off like their comment didn't really mean anything, but from what I saw, however, Trisha seems to like plant a seed for Ethan, and Ethan kind of took the bait because he did react the way he did. And Trisha says in one sentence, and you heard it in the clip, how they have a problem with people having nannies, and then also says that Hila and Ethan, like, they can do whatever they want. That's pretty much what Trisha says, but like that's literally a contradiction within a contradiction, because you literally said in the same breath, Trisha, I have a problem with nannies. Also, you can do whatever you want. Now, the third and final fight, and this kind of like starts everything. This third and final fight involves so many things that even if I do show a clip, there's so much more to talk about from this episode alone. The last time and the last Frenemies episode was on June 8th, 2021. It was ironically titled Talking About Gabby Hanna. And if you want to know the irony, of course there'll be a fight on the episode talking about Gabby Hanna and how much their life has been spiraling and things like that. of course it will be that episode. I will say this episode looks weird and has a weird vibe to it, but just to keep this video as short and sweet as possible, here's a clip from their argument in the last Frenemies episode.
I can't spoil it, can I? Because it's like 2004, but it is like...
You can spoil it.
Oh my God, yeah. So, well, basically, like, they do fall in love with each other. They're both married to women. This takes place in the 60s or whatever. And then Jake Gyllenhaal gets, like, beat in the face to death for being gay in Texas. And then the wife, played by Anne Hathaway, like, I think she was in on it at the end because she calls...
Not much changed since then in Texas, I don't think.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. That's what's so... Okay, I'm not trying to get all, like, heated about this, but there's still... People are still like that. Like, trans people are getting beat in their face to death.
No, I'm
like,
so over that shit.
And so, like, watching it, I was just like, holy shit. And, like, Heath Ledger, Jake Gyllenhaal said Heath Ledger refused to make, like, gay jokes about it, like, during the Oscars, and... I don't know.
Is there a third pizza?
You're so not good about this. Okay, let's go to your stupid...
Make sure that
I don't like
pizza.
This segment. Just for the record, fan advice is a stupid segment.
Why?
But we can do it. It's so dumb. What's the point?
To give advice to our fans?
But that's not the, like, that's like when people run out of ideas and they start doing Q&As. Like Tyler Oakley ran ideas. So it's like, we're going to do Q&As now because we have nothing else to talk about. Okay, go ahead. It's such a dumb segment.
It's so not. It's
like we
fun.
have nothing to fill the time.
Okay, well, what, you want to talk more about the Brokeback Mountain, a movie from fucking like 10 years ago?
It's like a lazy podcast. Like, we're going to play games on the, like, you know.
A lazy podcast. You don't do anything for it. You just show up. We do all the work.
Oh my God, yeah, right.
So this was a clip that started it all, right? And just to be clear, I do feel Ethan Klein was rude and definitely in the wrong when Trisha was talking about Brokeback Mountain, which is... I think, that's an old movie. Oh my God. And how much they loved the movie. Ethan definitely cut off Trisha and minimized how much they felt about the movie overall, which kind of feels like, why am I talking if you're just gonna talk over me? I totally get that vibe from Trisha. Trust me, I do. This was then followed by Trisha, because Trisha is very reactionary, then trashing the Q&A session that fans were actually really excited about. Here's where I feel like Trisha really loses the fans. Right here, this moment, right now, is where Trisha starts to lose the fans. That statement right there, where people are so excited to really do this Q&A, and then, like, someone you idolize is like, oh, Q&As are stupid, I really didn't want to do it anyway. Like, that hurts. That hurts to hear. Like, now when it comes to fan bases, and this goes back to my main point, when you insult, invalidate, or make them feel worthless, they do feel disrespected. And I think not even that, there's way more in that podcast alone that people did have a problem with. I did notice that a lot of people did point out how rude and like disrespectful that was to them as a fan base. Now, you want to know something really ironic, and I love catching contradictions because I love to catch contradictions. What makes it so ironic is that Trisha then goes on their own channel, not even a few weeks later, with their fiance Moses, who is the brother of Ela Klein, which is in turn the brother-in-law of Ethan Klein. Follow me. Trisha then decides to have a video on their own channel titled Addressing Everything. I'm not done yet. Why is this ironic? Well, my friends, one, it's a clickbait title capitalizing on the situation, because of course people are going to click the video hoping that you talk about the situation of you leaving Frenemies, which of course Trisha didn't do. Two, it actually does show how hypocritical Trisha Paytas can actually be. To say you hated the Q&A session to only then do a Q&A session on your own channel kind of shows me that the Q&A session really wasn't the problem. Now, let's go back to the third fight real quick. And now going back to this third and final fight, it definitely felt like everything Trisha had an issue with was kind of like a buildup of frustrations. And it just seems like a lot of frustrations that were built up were just things that Trisha had a problem with, and it just wasn't being addressed probably in a way they liked, or wasn't being addressed at all. And so it just kept building and building and building. Looking back at those 25 weeks, maybe there were like some clues and hints in certain episodes where Trisha probably looked a little bit frustrated. Now, am I gonna watch all of the episodes to find that? No. If you want to look, go for it. I really did find it weird that 25 weeks there was no problems, and like this episode, it was just like an explosion of emotions. And like, I'm not gonna say Trisha Paytas was like yelling or whatever, but I will say it just seemed like a lot of things that were on Trisha's mind just really like word vomit. It just came out, and then that resulted in Ethan responding, plus Trisha responding, then Ethan responding again. Like, it didn't stop until Trisha just left. And that's pretty much how the Frenemies episode ended. Trying to keep the timeline as succinct as I can. The day after this podcast aired, Ethan then uploads another podcast titled Regarding Trisha Quitting Frenemies. And pretty much this whole podcast is Ethan literally throwing figures to prove that he wasn't screwing Trisha Paytas over and actually giving them what they agreed to upon text messages. And if you don't know what I'm talking about this 5% thing that Trisha Paytas brought up on the podcast and then brought up on Twitter and stuff like that. So Ethan said, I'm going to show proof and talk about the receipts that I have to prove that I'm not screwing you over, and I'm actually giving you the money that we literally agreed on through text. I don't know why, if money was like a thing, they didn't have a contract. But then again, Trisha says money really wasn't a thing, even though money seemed to be a thing. And of course you know how this goes by now. Trisha Paytas saw this and then they responded themselves and of course said Ethan was lying, and then thus Ethan saying Trisha was lying. So just for the reference, just know everything I talk about was responded to. I just want to put that out there. Everything I put out there so far and things I will talk about later have been responded to. Let's just put that out there now so I don't have to keep saying it. Now, back to my point earlier where I feel like there was a theme with all these arguments, so just hear me out for a second. From what I can see, only for me, like you probably disagree with me, that's fine. But just for me, okay? From what I can see and hear, it seems like Trisha, when they are contradicted in person, they really don't have a response. Really think about it for a second. Out of all the arguments and beef Trisha has had online, Ethan has been kind of like the only person to really have the access and ability to call Trisha out in person. Usually when Trisha has a tirade with people online, they usually have a video response with receipts or whatever it may be to prove their point. Even think about the Gabby Hanna podcast. I think Trisha came out on top because like Gabby Hanna is Gabby Hanna. But even in that podcast, Trisha was just bombarded, and it's just like Gabby kept trying to contradict Trisha with everything that they were saying, and like Trisha was just like, that didn't happen. I don't know what you're thinking about, but that's not how it happened. Like that's all Trisha could really say to Gabby at that point. Just like when Ethan Klein is like, well, you just kind of show up, so why would we pay you more than what we agreed on? And like Trisha really didn't have really much of a response to that. And then we already know there was leaked text messages and things like that I can't even find anymore because the tweets are gone. Think about it that way. A lot of people, when they get contradicted in person instead of online, really have a tough time proving their point without receipts. Just keep that in mind. And this is why podcasts can really go either way. For instance, you have the podcast where they usually don't cut anything out like the Frenemies podcast does. So everything you say on a platform like that will be shown in that way. Versus when Trisha Paytas was on the Gabby Hanna podcast, like I said earlier, things were cut out, things were it seemed like things were put out of context, and when Trisha was having the upper hand in the conversation, Gabby kind of like cut it, and then like they brought it back, and then they just kind of ended. I think that's how it went, but like it was, or something similar to that. Unfortunately, Trisha Paytas was on one of those podcasts where everything is shown as it is, and a lot of people were questioning why Ethan even released the final podcast where Trisha just finally quits, and he brings up a good reasoning in saying that Trisha Paytas is one of those people that like to bring up all these things. So what he decided to do was like, no, I'm going to release this episode and let the people decide how you said what you said, which I will commend is pretty much kind of holding Trisha Paytas accountable, because it's just like, no, you didn't say it like that, you said it like this, and it's kind of hard to contradict because, again, it really didn't seem like there was anything cut out of the Frenemies podcast except the end where it was just kind of awkward and Trisha left. And do not worry, we will get back to podcast very shortly. Now, the fallout from this fight alone was something for the books. There were so many TikToks, videos, Twitter posts, screenshots, leaked texts, not even just regarding Ethan, Klein, and Trisha Paytas, but families, the H3's production crew, which really felt awkward about the whole situation. And most notably, the 5%. Bringing it up again. Why? Because it kept being brought up. And again, another contradiction, because Trisha has said multiple times that the 5% revenue really didn't bother them. But if it didn't bother you, one, you would never bring it up if it didn't bother you. And two, you kept talking about it in those now deleted videos. Actually, you can look at Trisha Paytas' second channel and see that they still have a video about the 5% thing brilliantly called 5%. That isn't a joke. Trisha actually really titled the video that. Pretty much this video was Trisha making a meme out of the 5% thing and promoting their OnlyFans for 5% for the first 100 people to subscribe to their OnlyFans. And this is very reminiscent of Trisha's whole persona of how they're trolling for clicks and views, because they themselves know that people will click on a video, again, bringing up views again, we'll keep bringing up views, trust me. They know that people will click on it because it seemed like it was going to talk about the situation between them and Ethan, and it really didn't, so of course people were upset. Ethan isn't free from this criticism as well, though. I definitely feel that Ethan, it was a lot more lighthearted, but they still played a role in keeping the drama going, having their own clickbait videos and titles. Definitely not to the degree of Trisha and how they went about the whole thing, but Ethan definitely contributed to the whole thing. So again, it just wasn't Trisha Paytas. Ethan Klein, in some way, still played a role in this as well. However, in my personal opinion, Trisha did go way too far in this, and I think they themselves have admitted it in the Mom's Basement podcast, but we're not there yet. Just want to put it out there. I'm not saying Trisha never acknowledged that they were in the wrong, but I think they acknowledged they were in the wrong. That's all I'm going to say. Now, we are in part of the timeline where Trisha and Ethan Klein kept teasing that there's going to be a new co-host for Frenemies, and a lot of names and YouTubers kept getting brought up and speculated. But in the end, Ethan's new co-host turned out to actually be his mom, Donna Klein, and they rebranded the podcast as Families. This was a nice surprise for fans and subscribers alike, because a lot of people loved how wholesome Ethan's mom was, especially when talking about YouTube drama, and let me tell you, I think it was a dope concept overall. You could definitely tell that Ethan and his mom really do love each other, and they just enjoyed being around each other. I'm of course bringing up the podcast because it actually does come into play a little bit later. This is where everything hits the fan. So please bear with me. This is where everything goes crazy. So if I miss some stuff, I apologize. I really do. This is the one time where I'll fully confidently say I didn't get everything, because again, things were deleted. There's threads. There's too many things to follow for one video. Weeks went by. And it seemed like everything calmed down between everyone involved until, and this is the main reason I wanted to make this video so bad. Out of nowhere, it seems Keemstar, who is the host of Drama Alert, posted this picture right here. And now wait a second, is that? Oh, that's right. That's Trisha Paytas in a Frenemies hoodie, by the way. So, on August 15th, we jumped a little bit ahead, y'all. It was revealed that Trisha Paytas would be on the August 18th episode of the Mom's Basement podcast, which is hosted by Keemstar, who I already talked about, and FaZe Banks. Now, I know what you're thinking. What does this have to do with anything? Well, my friends, I have some news for you. If you do not know by now, Keemstar is the true definition of what you would consider to be a villain, except he's on YouTube. He has said and done so many gross and offensive things that I honestly can't keep count. And don't worry, we'll get to that. Ethan Klein and Keemstar, they have had an internet beef and a personal rivalry for years. Years. Well before the Frenemies podcast, and honestly, well before Ethan and Trisha met, or even knew of each other. Both guys have said some nasty things about each other. It's not just one-sided. Both have done and said some nasty things to either side. Just putting it out there. But of course, Keemstar is someone that is so proud that he takes it too far. And he's like so proud of that fact. He owns it. Like, he does not care. That's why he's not canceled, by the way. He's a dude, bro. We'll get to that. So, what makes this important is there's no way that Trisha did not know about this rivalry. And Trisha has also had their own beef with Keemstar, most notably recently calling out the fact that Keemstar, who was 39, by the way, was dating a girl that was 20 years old and saying how gross it was and about the age gap and like all these things. I have to legally say this because I don't want to get sued or like struck by anybody. Just want to put this for legal purposes. This part right here that I'm about to talk about for the next paragraph or so, it's just a conspiracy. It's just a theory. Do not sue me. The circumstantial evidence, however, is very damning. That is all I'm going to say. I'm not going to say it's true. Do not sue me. Especially you, Keemstar. Do not sue me. So basically what happened was Ethan Klein got 2 strikes on the H3 podcast channel. And for those that do not know, YouTube has a 3-strike policy. Once you receive that 3rd strike, your channel gets terminated. Like, everything's gone, monetization gone, videos gone. I think YouTube starts to do IP bans, but I'm not sure, so please don't quote me on that. But either way, it's still hard to start from zero for anybody. Why is this important? Because allegedly, Keemstar was making posts and things, basically taking credit for the strikes on Ethan Klein's channel. I am not saying Keemstar was responsible for these strikes at all. Again, I am not saying Keemstar was responsible for these strikes at all. The fact that he was celebrating and seemed to know about the strikes before anybody else kind of did is kind of telling. Just to make this timeline clear, on August 11th, Keemstar did talk about the strikes. Ethan Klein actually does get a phone call in a clip I'm about to play a little bit later, or if it's not a clip, it's in the video of the clip I'm about to play a little bit later. Ethan actually receives a call from YouTube saying, you have 2 strikes on your channel, 1 more and you're done, which resulted in H3 Productions not posting, I think, on their podcast channel for about a week, and then they could post again. And Ethan Klein says out of his own mouth that Keemstar snitched. Don't know what he snitched about, but again, Ethan Klein received 2 strikes. And just to make the timeline very clear for this part, because I think this is very important, Keemstar talked about the strikes on August 11th, posted the photo of him and Trisha Paytas on August 15th. And then the podcast, of course, as we know, came out on August 18th. So in that week span, Ethan Klein really couldn't do anything, but Trisha Paytas seems to have left Ethan behind and just kind of moved on and gave what it looks like Ethan Klein the middle finger, pretty much. Now, before, of course, the podcast went out, Ethan Klein did see the photo and responded to Keemstar's post expressing how sad it made him feel, thus leading to 2 things. One being that Keemstar made fun of Ethan. I mean, that was obvious. You knew that was going to come. The other being Trisha Paytas, yet again, making multiple videos, TikTok, and responses to what Ethan Klein said. All he said was, this picture makes me sad, and Trisha Paytas seems to really have a problem with that. I'm not going to give my thoughts on that just yet. I will save that for later, but just know, for that exactly, I have thoughts. Just putting it out there. Now, on August 16th, Trisha Paytas responded to the backlash from the fact that they were being called out on all of their platforms. Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all of it. Like, Trisha Paytas could not hide from this, okay? Trying to justify that the reason they're going on Keemstar's podcast, and this, the reason they justify going on Keemstar's podcast is that they don't owe anyone anything. They somehow love open discussions. Even though Every time they argue with someone, it's Trisha wants the last word. That is literally how every argument with Trisha Paytas goes. They want the last word. They want to make sure that they cannot be contradicted. They want the last word, and they want you to deal with it. Also, Trisha tries, and like this blew my mind because we'll get to it. Trisha tries to say that Keemstar is a changed person, and says this without any evidence that Keemstar's changed. Just a quick rundown. Let's talk about who Keemstar really is. I'll let you, the audience at home, decide, and you tell me if he's changed. Remember, these are things that Trisha has spoken out about. So, if Keemstar says the opposite, Trisha's a hypocrite. Watch this. Number 1, he's an actual racist. I mean, that you already kind of saw that coming, right? Anytime it comes to race issues with Keemstar, he loves to bring it up, and like, I guess he did his ancestry.com or whatever you want to call it, don't care. He loves to say that he's part African, so he gets a pass. He also told Swoop, a light-skinned person like myself, if you know Swoop, I post her videos on my community tab all the time. I love her videos, I think she's dope. Remember when he told Swoop, if you don't remember, I'll remind you, he told Swoop, a light-skinned person, that she wasn't dark enough to talk about race problems. But he's changed, right, Trisha? Okay, number 2, and this one should be big for Trisha because Trisha speaks about mental health all the time. Keemstar constantly makes fun of mental health, and he also profits off it. Now, I'm only gonna reference the situation a little bit, but big trigger warning, we're gonna be talking about right here. Now, if you don't know what situation I'm referencing, I'm talking about, of course, Etika, who unfortunately passed away last year. Yes, Keemstar's direct actions did not lead to what happened to Etika, and like, I think his family members said so themselves. But when you have someone on Drama Alert and have an interview with them when they're obviously not in a good mental state to be doing anything like that, and you're making jokes at their expense, I don't think it helped. You go in that mom's basement, Trisha. You do that. And number 3, and this will be very important in 2 seconds. I'll tell you why. His constant barraging of SA victims and apologist behavior, especially when it came to Jesse Smiles, who is a survivor of Carter supporter. Yes, I am very well Keemstar released a video just recently about how he changed his stance on SA, but the fact in the video that he said something along the lines of how he had to see how SA affected someone for him to believe them. Now, if you really think about it in the long run, that is still problematic to say. Literally not even 2 months ago, Trisha Paytas was really getting on Gabby Hanna about her apologist behavior when it came to the Jesse Smiles situation. But actually, Keemstar is a lot worse, and even I think Keemstar was attempting to give Curtis Lepore an interview. That's why Keemstar asked Curtis Lepore to DM him on Twitter or something. I think those tweets are gone though, but I remember Keemstar tweeting that. Trisha, I don't know what you define as change. You really speak out against things that Keemstar is for. So I don't understand what you mean by he's changed. Trisha Paytas willingly going on Keemstar's podcast after knowing all of this, along with the fact that Keemstar and Ethan Klein are rivals, along with the circumstantial evidence Keemstar struck Ethan's channel twice. Trisha Paytas still followed Keemstar within 2 hours of the podcast going up. And as you can see here, it's one of those apps where you can see who followed who, and it actually updates when that happened. As you can see, 8/18/21, which is the day the podcast went up, you can see Trisha followed Keemstar. Now, with the drama and build-up to this podcast, surely, and I do mean, surely this podcast is going to be an epic back and forth between the 2 biggest trolls on YouTube of all time. We have Killer Keemstar, Trisha Paytas, the 2 biggest trolls. They're gonna clash. Finally, is it gonna be worth our time? Is it going to be worth it, my friends? Trisha said they were there for an open discussion, right? Well, my friends, I actually decided to listen to the entire podcast and take notes just to see if Trisha actually stuck to their word, or were they just a big hypocrite and then like they lied about everything. Here are my direct notes that I took in real time while listening to the podcast. Not even 3 minutes into the podcast, they start bashing Ethan. I think Face Banks was the one that started off by just saying Ethan's effing P. I'm not gonna repeat the word because I don't need to. You can listen to it yourself. It's literally the first 3 minutes of the podcast. You'll hear it. And also, this is gonna be like a theme they talk about throughout the whole podcast, so just like bear with me. They already start talking about the views and like how many numbers it's gonna get, and like kind of disappointing to hear. I thought Trisha Paytas was past that. I guess not. And around 5 minutes in, Trisha talks about how them and Gabby get compared to all the time. But Trisha says the difference between them is, watch this, at least I can admit when I messed up and I kind of stopped talking about it immediately. Does Trisha forget that we all saw Trisha go off from Ethan just saying how sad he was that Keemstar posted that picture with Trisha, who was in a Frenemies hoodie, because at the end of the day, you should have known that that was going to stir up a lot of drama. So Trisha posting multiple YouTube videos, TikToks, tweets, that's stopping immediately. And around 13 minutes, again, they reference numbers and how Trisha needs to collab with somebody for like the internet to blow up and get all these likes. Again, why are we talking about views and numbers? I thought we were talking about Keemstar's girlfriend, who is now his ex-girlfriend. We'll get to that. And just like all the differences between them and Keemstar. I thought that was the goal of this podcast. I guess Trisha forgot about that magically. Anyway, so finally around halfway in, I think this is around 18 minutes in, they finally get around to talking about Keemstar's girlfriend, who is now ex-girlfriend, because I think homegirl finally looked up who Keemstar was, or maybe her friends told her, hey, you know who you're dating, right? And then showed them all like these receipts, and she said, no thanks. So now that girlfriend that was a big deal is now an ex-girlfriend, because we don't know. Keemstar really didn't say why they broke up. All he said was he's taking applications for his ex-girlfriend, and he actually posted people's girlfriend applications. Gross. And you think Trisha would finally be like, okay, this is my time to really get into Keemstar. Let me call him out for real. Let's do this thing. They didn't do it. They literally talked about the girlfriend for like 2 minutes and moved on. One of the main reasons I thought Trisha was there personally was to talk about this and just talk about everything, all the differences and stuff. 2 minutes. Yeah, that's your girlfriend? That's pretty much what they said. Oh, that's literally the interaction that they had. No joke, the rest of the podcast is so boring, and literally everything you thought Trisha was going to come at for Keemstar never happened. Literally, for half this podcast, it was all three of them just grinding Ethan and talking about their bad experiences with him and just like making fun of him. And what makes it worse is that Moses was also in the room. So just to hear someone talk about your brother-in-law that way and you just kind of stay quiet, come on, bro. I've heard Moses is a yes man and just does anything Trisha says. Don't know the dude personally. I haven't seen enough evidence to even make that conclusion myself. But a lot of people are saying that Moses is a yes man, so I find it interesting. Now, Trisha did say that they were still more pro Ethan than pro Keem, but I don't know if that really means anything in the long run, because at the end of the day, it's still Keemstar. So do with that information what you will, but honestly, to me, it really doesn't mean much. So pretty much people got riled up for basically nothing, because literally nothing came from this podcast. And like Keemstar made it an emphasis like they worked out their differences, but except they really didn't. No differences were worked out. All they did was make fun of Ethan Klein for half the podcast. Unless Trisha Paytas just literally went on the podcast to make fun of Ethan Klein. And I think Trisha, near the end, realized that they were being used. Because yes, Trisha, you were being used. Keemstar wanted to use you to get to Ethan because he himself can't get to Ethan. Keemstar used you. I don't know if you want to ever come out and say that in public, because if you do, you'll really have to eat your words, or you just don't care. Either way, both options are bad. So the day after this podcast comes out, right? I'm trying to stay within this timeline, y'all. I really am. Ethan Klein releases one final video on his podcast channel titled I'm Done with Trisha Paytas. And this is more so of Ethan Klein just reacting to like the Twitter posts and stuff, since he was suspended for that week due to the strikes. He also seems to confirm what everyone thought, and I just want to keep saying, I'm going to keep saying it's a theory because I'm not trying to get sued. He really confirms that Keemstar was the one that contacted YouTube directly, thus resulting in his 2 strikes on his channel. Now, I just want to pull this one clip from his video, and I think Ethan throws down a good point, and that I also have seen online myself. So before I say anything else, here is the clip.
And Trisha reads everything. I know that. So I think this is just projection and confession here.
First, he's like, yeah, let's film tomorrow. Let's do it. And then all the comments were like, Trisha's like spoiled and titled, all this stuff like that. And then he like changed it.
I just think the amount of effort, I'll just use Ethan as the example, the amount of effort he'll put in and the length he's willing to go to like make an accusation or highlight a bad part of somebody. If he gets it wrong, he doesn't put an equal amount of effort in redeeming it or correcting it at all. Not
I still get so much hate from his audience. Like literally, it's not even that severe.
So my audience is your audience too. Trisha's got this weird thing where she thinks that all the hate she's getting is just H3 fans. It's like, I hate to break it to you, Trisha, but I think they're mostly your fans that are become disillusioned with you. I mean, we would get like 4 or 5 million views per podcast of Frenemies, and we get like, 2 million on a really great episode here. So there's like 3 million extra people there that don't care about me.
Now, this is something I've seen online myself as well, where Trisha is saying that the H3 fans are like the only ones that are the hate mob, that are coming after them and all these things like that. If you really look into it a little bit more, it's actually Trisha's own fans that are coming after them and saying how wrong they were and like how problematic their behavior is. Like, if you look at the YouTube videos, really look at Trisha Paytas' YouTube videos, look at the like to dislike ratio after the last Frenemies episode, and you can see how much people are disliking Trisha Paytas right now, and it's not good. And I think Trisha Paytas hasn't even broke 8,000 likes on any of their videos since the Frenemies breakup. Now remember, when Trisha Paytas was on Frenemies, they got so many likes. Like, their views were kind of up, but as soon as Frenemies was over, their views went down, the likes went down, the dislikes went up. Correlation is correlation. Now, does this stop here, you may ask? No, because we have to talk about the Families podcast. Remember me talking about that a while ago? Well, here's why. During the online back and forth between Trisha and Ethan, Ethan's mom actually got into the mix and talked about how they were done with Trisha and how like they didn't want to go to the wedding and all of this, which like made everything 10 times worse. All of the Families podcast up to episode 9, where Donna Klein, which is Ethan's mom yet again, talks to or about Trisha Paytas. The episodes before that were definitely like seemingly wholesome, seemingly fun. As soon as Mother Klein was brought into the internet drama, it felt like the whole dynamic of the show itself changed. Now, sadly for some, the podcast seems to have ended after 10 installments on Ethan's channel. Why? Well, a lot of people think the reason why it ended is because of Trisha Paytas. Something I forgot to mention was the day after Ethan Klein said they were done with Trisha Paytas and the whole situation, Trisha Paytas then uploads their own video titled No More Enemies. Because what Trisha decided to do after the Frenemies podcast was create a spoof, or whatever you want to call it. It was kind of like a series, pretty much how Frenemies rolled, where they talked about internet drama and stuff like that, except it was just Trisha, and instead of Frenemies, Trisha called it Enemies, and it was basically, like I said, it was basically a parody of the aforementioned podcast. This obviously didn't last long, because in this No More Enemies video, Trisha Paytas is like, I have deleted all the videos, I'm going to have podcasts on a different channel, starting on August 23rd, which I haven't checked if Trisha actually did do that, but they said they were going to start a new podcast on a new channel on August 23rd, which it's September 1st now. So they probably had 2 installments by now if they stuck true to their word. And then this video, after the No More Enemies video, was then followed up by another video 2 days later by Trisha yet again, titled "I'm Not Staying Silent on This, RE," which is reply, if people don't know that, Ethan Klein and Ethan's mom. This video Trisha posted was in direct response to Ethan's mom basically saying on the second to last episode of Frenemies, which is Frenemies 9, that if something happened to Gila Klein while pregnant because of the stress, it is Trisha Paytas' fault. That is pretty much what Donna Klein sent. I think it was a sent text message to Moses. Now, I could definitely see both sides of the fence when it comes to this situation, so hear me out. One side being Trisha feels like what they say or do shouldn't be affecting another person, especially if they haven't talked about him in a bad way, which is true. I haven't seen any evidence of Trisha Paytas talking badly about Gila Klein at all throughout this whole thing. I think Trisha has been very nice to Gila. Again, I haven't seen anything personally that shows that Trisha Paytas was being mean, being vile to Gila. So if you've seen it, please correct me in the comments below, because I just didn't see it myself, and I really looked. I really looked. And the other part being that Moses, the brother of Gila, leaves everyone in a bad position, basically making it look like Moses picked Trisha over family, and how that could really hurt Gila Klein in the long run. Also, it definitely comes across like Trisha ruined this family forever, because there's going to be doubts and awkward tension at family events. And it's not like Moses can't avoid his family forever. Like, he has to go to holiday parties, Thanksgiving if they celebrate it. I don't know if they celebrate Halloween, maybe a Halloween party. Like, you can't just ignore your family forever. And it's not like you can bring Trisha Paytas along, because that's going to create a lot of awkward energy. So if the wedding still goes through, which I'm gonna be honest, I don't know how it would at this point, because who's going to go? Now, I feel like Mother Klein was just being a concerned mother, grandmother in the situation, and just kind of wanted it to stop. Of course, with Trisha Paytas, it will never stop. So back to what I was saying. After 10 episodes in the Family's podcast ended, and they ended it on their kind of terms and like nobody else's, I think that's a very important thing on this. Of course, theories came out as to why Ethan ended it so early or whatever, but he does say himself it wasn't really meant to go this long, but he, like, once he saw like how people were enjoying it, he really didn't mind it going that long. But he actually puts the real reason out there and kind of puts like the kibosh on everything, so like people can stop making up theories. So the reason why the Family's podcast ended overall was just because Ethan wanted to keep his parents safe from the toxic side of the internet. If you really think about it, after ages, the last thing you really want to do is get into some internet beef with someone you don't even know, or like a future in-law. Like, that's not something in your retired ages that you really want to focus on. So I can understand why Ethan would tell his parents, like, it's done, let's just move on. Like, it was fun while it lasted, but I think he did it mostly for their safety. Now, this does seem kind of reactionary because of the whole Trisha Paytas like really going off thing, and going off against Donna Klein especially. So I can definitely see why it could seem like that, but also, if you really think about it, if they would have kept it going, I don't know. And I think Ethan Klein also says like he doesn't want to wait for like the exposed videos on his parents. Like, that's not what the parents signed up for. That's not what Ethan signed up for. So just kind of like put the kibosh on it and just kind of end it right there. So where does that leave us now? I actually wanted to go into a deep dive during this video, and I hope I did like kind of justice, but I probably didn't achieve my goal. Like, the whole point of this video was just to like bring up how family and YouTube really don't mix that well together. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to bring up two situations where direct family had an issue and it became really a big YouTube thing, because it does seem like families have like the biggest beef on YouTube out of all the subgroups. So it kind of does make sense. If you have been on YouTube as long as I have, and when I say as long as I have had an account for like 14 years, 15 years, since 2006, pretty much when YouTube was created. And I only started doing commentary last year, but I've been observing and I've been looking at YouTube for years way before that. I just decided to start like taking YouTube in a different direction for me last year. The reaction videos like that, they're still on my channel. Like, you can go watch them. They're old, but you can go watch them. If you have been around as long as I have, right, then some of y'all might remember the Logan Paul and Jake Paul thing, where I think the pinnacle of that whole debacle was Logan Paul taking Jake Paul's ex-girlfriend, putting her in a music video, pretty much bragging about the things he did to her explicitly, things like that. And it really did lead to like a really big falling out for the brothers, but they've kind of reconciled. They don't really, like, you don't really see them together anymore except at boxing events. And then if you also remember, there are two UK YouTubers by the name of KSI, who is part of the Sidemen, and Deji, who was his brother. So again, two sets of brothers. They both had internet drama and it turned into real beef. Like, it wasn't just for views or clicks, it was a real thing. And they both revealed personal things on the internet that should have never been revealed. And I think this is the danger of like collabing with family, or having drama with family on YouTube. Because once that information is out there, and like we always say, the internet is forever. You can delete as many things as you want, but people are gonna screenshot, record, especially if you're very popular like these creators were, especially Trisha Paytas. They're going to screenshot everything Trisha Paytas says. This whole notion of everybody's just going to move on and nothing's going to happen is not realistic. Now, I still don't think Trisha Paytas understands or gets why people are upset with them, and I think I can best explain why. And thankfully, y'all, we are at the end of my notes. Literally everything before this was all notes. I took a lot of notes. That's why this video took so long, for one. And again, I'm sorry that this took so long. I've just been tired, and now I have the energy again to make another video. I think I can best explain why people are still upset. The reason why people are still upset with Trisha Paytas is, I think Trisha Paytas is ignorant to the fact, or they either are ignorant to the fact, or they know what's going on and they don't care. Either is like pretty bad, because it seems like they're not listening to anybody. I've already mentioned a little bit earlier how Trisha Paytas speaks out about SA. Trisha Paytas is an advocate for mental health. And obviously Trisha speaks out about anybody that does anything racist, even though they themselves have had a problematic past with racism. Literally going against all three of your beliefs, all three of those beliefs specifically, to go on a podcast who, by the way, is your future in-law's biggest rival, and like someone that just wants to see Ethan Klein fail. You really went with the Frenemies hoodie. Like, that was a conscious choice. You cannot say that wasn't a conscious choice. Trisha Paytas knew exactly what they were doing, wearing a Frenemies hoodie in Keemstar's territory. I can see why Ethan Klein is upset. I can see why the fans are upset, because Trisha Paytas really went back on all their morals, and it seemed like Trisha Paytas did this to get at Ethan Klein on purpose. Now, of course, people are gonna be like, well, Trisha Paytas has the right to do whatever they want. Yes, I agree. But when it comes to family or future family, I think there are some unwritten rules that people should just kind of follow. Like, could you imagine if Ethan Klein invited Gabby Hanna to come on his podcast, and then instead of talking about their differences, he would literally let Gabby Hanna bash Trisha Paytas on his podcast? Do you think Trisha Paytas would be okay with that? And if Ethan Klein used the same excuse of, well, I can have anybody on my podcast that I want, we're just working out our differences, blah, blah, blah. Gabby's changed, right? If Ethan Klein used the same exact excuse, like if he brought Gabby Hanna on his podcast, do you think Trisha Paytas would be okay with that? Pause for reaction. I've always wanted to do that because I like swoops. I've always wanted to do that to see if that like got an effect, and I actually felt something when I did that. So I like that pause for reaction thing. I'm not gonna do it again though because that's swoops thing, but I just wanted to do it one time because I actually like swoop. Anyway, do you think? I'm just saying, if we're gonna flip it, let's really flip it and let's really talk about it. Also, it's also the fact that for me, it seems from the outside, Trisha Paytas kind of tells Moses what to do and he just follows it. Like Moses really does kind of, only from what I've seen on how he reacts on these podcasts and stuff, he does kind of seem like a yes man and just kind of like follows everything, because honestly he probably doesn't care about the internet that much, and he's probably like, well, this is kind of stupid, I'm just kind of here though. I really don't have much else to say. I've kind of said everything I wanted to say during this whole video, but that was just kind of like my final initial thoughts on why people are upset with Trisha Paytas. If you're upset with Trisha Paytas for another reason for this whole situation, I really didn't get really much into the mental health thing because I'm not really like educated on like anything mental health like that, and I didn't want to like give misinformation, so I just kind of took the safe route and just not really avoided it, but I did bring up like mental health things here and there, but I didn't want to really like say that Trisha Paytas lied about diagnosis or anything, because that, I think that's something people have been bringing up. I didn't want to bring that up because I'm not really an expert in that field. Like, those are my thoughts. If you had different thoughts, you can always leave them below. Like, it's perfectly fine to disagree, especially when it comes to this situation, because I really do feel like for this situation, Ethan Klein was definitely done dirty, and Trisha Paytas really does need to apologize. And I think they apologized, but then they deleted the video, which don't know why they did that, but okay. I think I said everything I needed to say, and I just had a good time. Woo! I had to take that off. For those that do not know, I tweeted about this last night because this video was going to be going up today, hopefully. I had to re-record like half of that video, so I had to wear this costume twice, especially the wig. So I definitely took the wig off for the end because like, hopefully this video footage saves this time, and if it does, you'll see me saying that the video footage saved this time. And I just hope you had a good time. I'm wearing this costume. I'm gonna take this costume off as soon as I'm done recording and putting it back for Halloween. And I just hope you had a good time. And just without further ado, once again, it's Malcolm, that's me. I have a lovely subscription button up here, 2 other videos over there for your own free time. Now without further ado, I wish you well, I wish you good health, happy holidays, happy Halloween, happy Thanksgiving, whatever you celebrate. I wish you good health, and I will see you again next time.